Hello guys, before we start this video, a large thank you to Braden Bechtold, Azam Alamsudi, Joshua Harmon, and Dan Reynolds. Also, thank you Dan for choosing to subscribe to my Patreon for a year. You guys now have that option, so if you are current patrons and want to switch to the yearly subscription as opposed to the monthly, you can do that and you will get a discount on my Patreon. And as in usual fashion, I'm very sorry if I'm pronouncing any of your names wrong. And now, on to the video. I hope you guys enjoy. Okay guys, today we're going to make our equipment screen. You're going to be able to switch weapons by clicking on the equipment screen and the weapon. It will then load up your weapon inventory and you'll swap out for whatever weapon you click. So first off, let's go down to the select equipment button and add on click and then make it open the equipment window, or enable it rather. And then we're going to go up here again, make sure that works. We're going to address this bug here that we have since a couple videos ago. And when I open that up, you're going to see here that it's saying there is no equipment window UI, and I'm calling it awake, so I'm not sure why Unity decided to be a bit picky about that recently. But I'm just going to make a public variable for the equipment window UI, and I'm going to erase it on the awake method, and I'm going to drag it in via the inspector. So let's click here, and then we will click equipment window, and there we go. We are all set and ready to go. Okay, so now when we load in, you'll see we still have an error. So now it's saying that we are unable to find hand equipment slot UI. We're getting the component in children, so we're going to do the same thing by hitting public. Again, don't know why Unity decided to do this, but it broke for whatever reason, but we can easily remedy this by making it public. We'll go over here to the size, type in 4, and then we will click on element 1 and hit left-hand slot 1, element 2, left-hand slot 2, and then right-hand slot 1 and 2. And that should remedy the couple of slight bugs we had with the UI. Now, let's go down here, and let's minimize this. Let's jump in game and make sure we have no more bugs. Cool, it is working as intended. Excellent. Okay, moving along briskly. So let's jump into our Uimanager script here. So let's make a public game object. I'm going to call this equipment screen window. And now I'm going to have this set up so I can enable and disable the equipment screen window. So that's the equipment window here, but for namesake, we're going to call it equipment screen window. So we keep our variable's name the same as our game object's name, so we're not confused if we have to reset all of these. So let's drag that on in here like so. Excellent. Then we're going to want to go into our Uimanager, and down here where it says close all inventory windows, we're going to want to say equipment screen window dot set active equals false. So now when we close out our inventory, we'll also disable this window. All right, so another thing we're going to fix here now, well, not really fix, but set up. So if we go to our equipment, you'll see I have swords equipped, but my player only has the unarmed weapon in his hand. Let's make our player start with the weapons we have equipped in the slot. So where there are 2 swords equipped in our slots, in a left-hand slot, 1 right-hand slot, 1, let's make it happen. So when we start the game, we start with our weapons equipped. So we're going to say right weapon equals weapons in right-hand slot 0 here on the start. And we'll do the same with the left weapon here, except we'll say weapons in left-hand slots 0. And then we'll say weapon slot manager dot load weapon on slot, right weapon, false, because it's our right hand. And then we'll say weapon slot manager load weapon on slot, left weapon, true, because it is our left hand. There we go. Okay, let's save that. Go back to the game. Hit start. We should spawn in now with our swords. Yes, we do. Perfect. Excellent. Cool. That is much better. Okay, moving along. Let's go over here to the right-hand slot 1, 2, left-hand slot 1, 2. Let's highlight them all. And then we're going to add a new on-click. We're going to basically go over here and we're going to highlight them all again. We're going to look for the weapon inventory window. Actually, it's the wrong one. It should be weapon inventory. Yeah, this one right here. Drag that in there. And then we're going to hit game object set active true. Then we're going to highlight these all again one last time. Hit this, and we're going to add the equipment screen window, and we're going to set active false. So we want to close out the equipment screen window and open the inventory screen window when we click the button, like so. So I pick up these 2 items here now. I go into my equipment screen, click it, There we go. We'll close the equipment screen and open our inventory screen. Now we have to make it so when we click one of the inventory items, it switches out our current item for this one. So let's go over here to the hand equipment slot UI script. And then we're going to make a public void called select this slot. We have to have a way to know which slot we've selected when we open our inventory. Pretty straightforward, right? So we're going to say if right hand slot 1, else if right hand slot 02, else if left hand slot 01, and then just else it has to be left hand slot 02. So what we're going to do here now is when you hit this button, if it is the slot 1 or 2 in the right or left hand, it will do one of these actions, and we're gonna want our Uimanager to know what slot is being checked. So we're gonna make a header here in our Uimanager, and we're gonna call this equipment window slots, or equipment window slot selected. This can be used in the future for when you're selecting your head slot, your leg slot, your glove slot, just a way to track which slot we have opened up so we know which inventory to open and what item to swap it out for. So we're going to make a public bool right hand slot 01 selected. We're going to do the same thing with right hand slot 02. And then we'll make a bool for left hand slot 01 selected or left hand slot 02 selected. So basically now that we've done this, we can call upon our Uimanager in our hand equipment slot UI, and we're going to basically make those bools true depending on which slot we've opened. But first, we're going to make a public void called reset all selected slots. Every time we close our inventory or whatever, or change our inventory item, or change our slot item rather, we want to reset the slot that's selected so we don't accidentally be replacing multiple items at a time. So we're going to say right hand slot 01 selected equals false, right hand slot 02 selected equals false, left hand slot 01 selected equals false, and left hand slot 02 selected equals false. I hope all this makes sense so far. If it doesn't, don't worry, I'm sure it will. So the idea is now when we go back to our, we're going to also hit reset all slots here when we close out our windows. When we go back to our hand equipment UI, we want to basically do one of these actions depending on which slot this is. So let's say this is the right hand slot 1, and the right hand slot 01 bool is checked. Then basically we're going to tell the Uimanager that, hey, right hand slot 01 has been checked. And then from there, we're going to replace the weapon in right hand slot 1 with the weapon we click in the inventory. So let's say Uimanager, we're going to call that on awake. We're going to try find object of type here for Uimanager. Alternatively, you may make it public and just drag it in the inspector. So I'm going to say down here on right hand slot 1, Uimanager dot right hand slot 01 select equals true. Uimanager dot right hand slot 02 select equals true if it is right hand slot 2. And the same for left hand slot 1 and 2. Okay, let's save that. Excellent. Now, let's go in the game here, and if we click on one of the slots, as you can see, oh, never mind, I forgot to do something. First, we got to add an on-click, and then we drag in each of the slots respectfully. You go down here to hand equipment slot UI and click select this slot. Make sure you're dragging in the proper slots on each of these little buttons. And by that I mean on right hand slot 01, make sure you're dragging in right hand slot 01. On right hand slot 02, make sure you're dragging in right hand slot 02, etc., etc. And then just go down and click select this slot on all of them where it says hand equipment slot UI, and then you will be good to go. Also, you make sure you have the proper boxes checked off down below where it says right hand slot 01, 02, left hand slot 01, 02. So now if I go in the game and I click on the UI, or player UI rather, up here, you will see there's nothing checked off. But if I go into my equipment screen and click one, boom, right hand slot 01 has been selected. Excellent, cool. And if I close out the inventory, it should be unselected. So let's go over here and pick up a weapon. Now we go in here, hit the equipment screen, and there's the second slot selected, as you will see. If I tap out of this with escape, it unselects. Go back in the inventory again, open up slot 3, left hand slot 01 is selected. Go back to the inventory screen again, left hand slot 02 is selected, and right hand slot 01 is selected. So that works as expected, which is fantastic. Now let's move on. So in weapon inventory slot script, let's go over here and make a public void called equip this item. So basically we're equipping the item that we have selected right now. So let's make a little list. We're going to want to remove the current item that's in our equipment selection window, and we're going to add it to the inventory after we remove it. So it's on equip from the equipment screen, add it to the inventory. And then we're going to equip this new item to the equipment slot, and we're going to remove it from the inventory. So we're moving it around from the inventory to the equipment screen. So first we're taking the old one, tossing it in inventory, and removing it from the equipment screen. And then we're taking the new one, moving it to the equipment screen, and deleting it from inventory. Pretty straightforward. So let's say player inventory, player inventory. Excellent. Now let's make an awake method. We can call that here. I'm going to use find object of type. You may make it public and drag it in via the inspector if you would like. Okay. I think we're going to need something else here. Might need the Uimanager. We're definitely going to need it actually. So Uimanager, Uimanager. Going to call that on awake as well. Going to say Uimanager equals find object of type Uimanager. You may use a public variable if you like and drag it in the inspector. It's all good. So down here, let's start our little chain here. We're going to say if Uimanager dot right hand slot O1 selected, then do some logic. Then we're going to say else if right hand slot O2 selected, do some logic. Then we're going to say else if left hand slot O1 selected, do some logic. And then finally, else it must be left hand slot O2, do some logic. Okay, nice. So in the first one here now, we're going to want to follow our little chain as we did earlier. So we're going to say player inventory. We're going to say player inventory dot weapons and inventory dot add player inventory dot weapons in right hand slot 0. So take the weapon in right hand slot O1, which is called weapons right hand slot 0 from the array, add it to your inventory. So we're going to do the same now with right hand slot O2 and left hand slot 1 and 2. So basically the weapon that you have right now in your hand, currently equipped in this particular equipment slot, let's add that to your inventory. And then we're going to want to replace that with the weapon that's on this inventory slot. So we're going to say player inventory dot weapons in right hand slot 0 is equal to, I believe we called it item on this, or weapon item. No, probably just, yep, there it is, item. So is equal to item, and that is the weapon on this inventory slot. And then we're going to do the same thing for that down here, making a small adjustment. It will be weapons right hand slot 1, and then down here will be weapons in left hand slot 0 and 1. There we go. There we go. So far we've added the weapon to our inventory, and we've replaced the weapon in our equipment screen. So cool. That's awesome. Now let's remove the weapon that we just added to our equipment screen from our inventory because we don't want duplicates. So we'll say player inventory dot weapons in inventory dot remove, and we'll say item. So it's like, oh, hey, you got this item in your inventory, we will remove it. Excellent. Very straightforward, very clean, very nice. Now we still have a couple things to do. So let's come down here, and we're actually going to say else if Uimanager left hand slot O2 selected, because if not, if we happen to click the weapon inventory button, even without a slot selected, it will assume to replace the weapon in left hand slot O2. So here we're going to say else return. Okay, now we actually have to load the models and such, because we're not calling that right now. So let's go in here on our weapon inventory slot first. And we're going to go to the button, we're going to add a function, and we're going to say equip this item. Now if you click the button and a slot is selected, it will swap out this weapon for a weapon that is in your current slot that you've selected. I'm also going to change the graphic of this just a little bit so I know it's highlighted. I'm going to go back down here on the weapon inventory slot again, the button, add another function. Going to go to the weapon inventory window and set it to inactive. So after you've clicked a new weapon, it will close out the weapon inventory window. Next, we're going to go up here and add the weapon slot manager on the weapon inventory slot. We're going to call that on awake. I'm going to use find object of type. You may also make it public and drag it in from the inspector. Excellent. I'm going to scroll down here now, and right at the end of this chain, so after we've searched through all of our slots and we're equipping the weapon, we want to say weapon slot manager dot load weapon on slot player inventory right weapon false. And do the same thing for your left weapon, except set it to true. and that will reload the models in your hand. And now we have to update our UI to display the new weapons. So we're going to do that as well. First, we're going to say player inventory.write weapon is equal to player inventory.weapons in right hand slots, player inventory.current weapon index. Cool. There we go. That's the right way. Actually, we can just copy that right now and delete it and put it right after all these if statements. There we go. Let's make that left. And after that, we're going to load the actual model. And now we need to update the equipment screen UI. So when you open the equipment screen, it shows what weapons you've equipped. We have to update those images to show the newly equipped weapons. Let's go right below here and we'll say Uimanager dot equipment screen window dot, I think it's load weapons. Let me check real quick. Uimanager.equipment window UI.load weapons on equipment screen player inventory. Excellent. And lastly, we're going to say here Uimanager.reset all selected slots. Let's save that. And let's jump in game and test this out. Okay, let's pick up the butcher sword and the sword. Now let's go to our equipment screen window. Let's click on one of our slots here. I'm going to replace that, and boom, our weapon has changed. Excellent. So if we go into the equipment screen window again here, we'll switch out another one. Let's go down here, switch out our left-hand slot 02, and we go back to the equipment screen UI, and we can see that it has changed. Excellent. Now you guys have a fully functioning UI that you can swap out your weapons for, and this will be the staple for how we handle swapping our equipment as well. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. I really appreciate it if you would take the time to leave a like. It genuinely helps out my series so much when people do that. Also, if you feel super generous, leave a comment. It totally helps the algorithm. And if you're feeling like a champion, check out my Patreon below. I appreciate any and all support. And as usual, guys, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.